welcome back to my channel. I'm Ashley and you're over here with Cooking with Cultural Creations, or we're also known as Cultural Creations. If it's your first time here, definitely welcome to the family. If it's not, welcome back. Thank you all so much for the support. So today we're gonna make a Kentucky butter cake, y'all. So we're gonna use Kentucky bourbon for this cake. You know, we gotta infuse this cake with a little alcohol, you know, give it a little something, it's not like, you know, overbearing or anything like that, but we're going to infuse the batter with the bourbon, and we're also going to make a butter glaze, and we're also going to put bourbon in that. So as you know, or you may not know, when you cook with alcohol, it evaporates out of what you're cooking. So you're not gonna, you know, feel like you're boozy or anything like that from eating this cake. It's not gonna be just like, you know, overly alcohol tasting, however you want to say it. We're using a little bit in the batter, and we're going to use a little bit in the glaze for a nice balance, so it's not too bad. Y'all think y'all really gonna like it. This cake is like really light and buttery, really buttery. Okay, so if that's the type of thing that you like, I think you're really gonna like it. And it's not too sweet. Like, we're making the glaze, the butter glaze, with sugar, and we use a little bit, you know, we use some sugar in this glaze, like a cup and a half. And you would think that would be really sweet, but the cake's not. It's not just terribly sweet. But let me go ahead and show y'all how to make this cake. Let's go ahead and get into it. All right, y'all. So we need 3 cups of flour, 2 cups of sugar, 1 cup of buttermilk, 2 sticks of butter, some vanilla extract, that's 2 teaspoons, 1/4 cup of bourbon. You're going to need baking powder and baking soda, and you're also going to need eggs. Eggs and butter need to be at room temperature. Okay, so what we're going to do is go ahead and start by mixing our dry ingredients together. So just put your baking powder and your baking soda in there with the flour, and you go ahead and whisk it together. And by the way, this flour has been pre-sifted. Make sure that you sift your flour. Okay, so we're going to mix our wet ingredients. We're going to mix our vanilla extract, and we're going to mix our bourbon into our buttermilk, and we're just going to give that a stir until it's combined. Okay, and so we're going to go over here and start with our mixer. So we're going to place our butter in here, and we're going to add our sugar, and we're going to go ahead and start mixing that together. So you want to use the paddle mixer with this, just so you know you're making sure that it gets really nice and fluffy. I prefer the paddle over the regular whisk, but if you're using a hand mixer, that's fine too. So I'm just showing you all the progression of the sugar and the butter mixing together. You see it starting to cream up and everything like that. Of course, you want to stop it throughout the process, and you want to scrape down the sides before you start adding any of the other ingredients. So when it's nice and fluffy, we're going to go ahead and add our eggs. So you want to go ahead and add your eggs one at a time, making sure that the egg is combined between each addition. So how you know that the egg is combined is that you don't see the yellow streaks, and then you're good. Okay, so once you have all the eggs, then we're going to go ahead and we're going to add our flour mixture, but we're going to alternate with the buttermilk, and we're going to start with the flour, and we're going to end with the flour. Yeah, start with flour, end with flour. I'm sorry. So just add your flour, pour a little buttermilk, add your flour, pour a little buttermilk. I always like to use a measuring cup to add my flour. It's just a little easier. You can do what, you know, whatever makes you comfortable. My mixer is a little smaller, so I have to get a little strategic also with adding ingredients. Okay, so you don't need to mix this at a high speed. Once it's combined, go ahead and stop. You can hand stir the rest of the way to make sure all the edges are combined and everything. Spray your bump pan, and then we're going to go ahead and get ready to pour into this bump pan, y'all. Go ahead and get it going with this cake. So of course you just want to place your batter in there as evenly as possible. So I just, you know, turn and add, and then after we get it in there, we're going to go ahead and give it a little bit of a shake just to make sure that we get the air bubbles out of the cake. I want the top of the cake as flat as possible. As you can see right now, it's a little lumpy because we're adding the batter in there, and the batter's, you know, it's a good consistency. So once you get it in there, like I said, you can give it a shake, And then, you know, you want to spread the top of it with your spoon first to make sure that you're starting the process where it's, you know, smooth on top of the cake. And we're going to go ahead and put this cake in the oven, and we're going to cook it on 325 degrees for about 60 minutes. So once you get your cake out of the oven, you can let it sit like, let's say, about 10 minutes just to make sure like the cake is firm before you start poking the holes in the cake. So I just use like a skewer, like you can get it at the store, like a candy apple skewer, and just go ahead and poke holes in the cake. I use this because the stick is pretty thick to make some good sized holes in the cake, to go ahead and pour our glaze on top. So just went around, I guess you can kind of say the middle of the cake, and then went around the outer edge of the cake. There's no right or wrong way to do this. Just make sure you have some a good amount of holes in your cake for the glaze, and you don't have to go like super far down into the cake, like not into the base of the cake, but you want to go a good distance down into the cake to poke your holes. Okay, so after you do that, we're gonna go ahead and get started with the glaze. We're gonna make the glaze on top of the stove. So let me tell you what you're gonna need: sugar, you're gonna need more bourbon, and you're gonna need water, and you're going to need butter. Room temperature butter. You can use regular butter, it just takes a little longer to melt, like straight out of the refrigerator. I just already had my butter sitting out because I had my ingredients out when I was cooking. So put your butter into the saucepan. This is like about medium heat. Yeah, about medium heat. It doesn't have to be just like super hot, okay? Because we're not boiling this mixture. We're just heating all the ingredients together, and we want to make sure that the sugar and butter are combined. So after your butter has melted, then you can go ahead and add your sugar into your saucepan. So you add it. I went ahead and made sure that the butter and the sugar was combined before adding the water. So you just give it a little mix with your spatula and or your wooden spoon, something like that, and then just keep mixing until you don't see any more of the sugar crystals. So if your pan is too hot at this point, it starts the bubbling process, then you want to go ahead and make sure that you turn the heat down, because once again, we're not boiling. So as you can see, this is combined. So now I'm going to go ahead and add the water, and once again give it a mix. And once that was pretty well combined, then I went ahead and removed it from the stove. So you just want to keep stirring. I'm just showing you all, giving you all a little bit more footage right here so you can see how the syrup transitions. You want it to be like a little like a loose syrup before you remove it from the stove. Okay, so just keep stirring. I stopped like, you know, maybe for a second or so like that, but just keep stirring. Okay, so we're turning the stove off, and we're going to remove our pan, and then we're going to add the bourbon. Okay, so go ahead and just pour it right in there. And like I said, y'all, this glaze isn't that sweet. You know, we put some water in here, so it's not so thick. And then when we have the bourbon in there, you want to add the bourbon last, because, you know, alcohol evaporates out of food items. So just add it last. You don't need it, you know, you don't need to add it over the heat. And so then you just take your spoon. I take a large spoon, and you just spoon the glaze over the cake. So you can add however much glaze you like. Be sure that you immediately go ahead and glaze your cake, because once you leave the glaze sitting too long, it'll start to solidify, and you want your glaze to be the same consistency it was when you took it off of the stove, somewhat thin. So you just keep going around the cake like so, and like I said, add as much or as little of the glaze as you like. And once you're done with glazing this side of the cake, then we're going to go ahead and invert the cake. So we want to do this process pretty quick, because you don't want to leave your cake in your bundt pan super long. I won't say any longer than like 20 minutes. You want to go ahead and invert it so it doesn't start sticking. So you want to be as quick as possible. Okay, oh y'all, that bundt pan is so pretty. I love this bundt pan. Oh my gosh, it makes such a pretty cake. Okay, so I always get nervous at this part because you never know, right? But the cake came out perfectly, y'all. This cake is so pretty. Okay, so then we're going to go ahead and just take a brush and we're going to go ahead and brush this side of the cake. Now, if you don't have a brush, I suggest that you get one, unless you don't mind just pouring the glaze over your cake. So of course this is your cake, so play around with it, really make it your own. You can decide if, you know, brushing the cake is good for you, or if you just really want to go crazy with the glaze. You have plenty of glaze to work with though. Okay, y'all, so our cake is done. Bam! You know, I have to cut a nice thick slice. Y'all, I love this bun pan. It makes such a pretty cake. Look how precise, you know, the edges of the cake are. I'm just so in love with it. And look at the crumb of the cake. You know, it's a little bit hard to see, but it's a nice crumb, very nice and moist. Okay, so let's go ahead and give this a little taste. I'm excited. You know, tell. Always excited to try. Let's go ahead. That's a good job. I don't know if you could see on the cake, but once the glaze dries, it has, like, you know, some little crystals that are on top of the cake. And then with pound cakes, the sugar rises to the top of the cake, so you have that little bit of a crunch with the cake. I don't know if you can hear what I was chewing, but it's like a slight crunch and a chewiness at the same time. And like I told y'all before too, this cake isn't like terribly sweet with the glaze. Okay, so this recipe gives you plenty of glaze to make with the cake, so you can use all of it. As you all can see, I didn't drown my cake. I put a good amount on one side, brushed it with a good amount on the other side. You can definitely just, you know, go to town with it and pour more. I didn't want to drown the cake with it, but there's plenty enough of the glaze for you to really decorate your cake the way you like it. Y'all, so go ahead and get started and make this recipe. Let me know in the comments how you liked it. As always, thank you all for your support. Make sure if you haven't already that you subscribe and that you hit the bell so that you're always notified every time that we post a recipe. And I'll catch y'all next time.